The occasional slapping turned into the occasional punch. It finally came to a head when my father came home one night and gave me an ultimatum.
Okay, enough is enough. Chad, you are either going to contribute to this family or you will no longer be welcome in this house.
What do you mean, Dad?
I need a car, so you have two choices. You can either go out and steal one for me, or you can go out and live on the street and never return. If you return here without a car, then I'll kill you. Do you understand me?
Hi there, my name is Chad, and I have a really great story to tell you. It didn't start off great though, but I promise you that it has a happy ending. To start with, let me just say that my parents are just about the worst people you can imagine. There are probably worse people out there in the world, but I had the misfortune of being born into their family. I was the youngest of 3 children. My older brother Jack and older sister Deborah were just like my parents. Growing up, literally everyone in the family would pick on me. When I was only 6, I learned to never ask my family for anything. Hey Dad, can we get a dog?
A dog? What makes you think that I would buy you a dog? I don't even want to pay for your food. Why would I pay for a dog's food as well?
What an absolute idiot. With what money are you going to pay for it?
Money? I don't have any money. I thought maybe Mom and Dad would pay for it.
You selfish little brat. I really wish your mother hadn't given birth to you.
My father then smacked the back of my head hard enough that it made me fall over. For a few seconds I saw stars, while Deborah just stood there and laughed at me. Once I regained my senses, she then sucker punched me in the stomach and began laughing again before walking away. I was so confused, but I knew from a young age that my family was cruel, and for no better reason than because they thought it was fun. On top of that, both my parents constantly would break the law, but never anything that would get them into a lot of trouble. For instance, my mother would regularly shoplift. She would even have my brother and sister act as a distraction so that people wouldn't notice her put things into her purse. Sometimes it would be stuff we would need, but not always. As for my dad, he would sometimes go into crowded areas and would pickpocket, sometimes making hundreds of dollars in a couple hours. He would often bring my brother and sister with him as well, when he did for the same reason as my mother. The two would make a scene, and people would stare at them, not knowing that they were being robbed while they were looking at my siblings.
Why doesn't Chad ever come and help us when we go out, Dad?
That's because he is incredibly useless, unlike the rest of us. He's too good to break the law. The only time I ever tried to use him to distract people, he immediately started crying and gave up before I could get a single wallet.
Well, I'm sorry, but I happen to think stealing is wrong. I guess I was just born into the wrong family.
You're damn right you were. You are such a disappointment. I never thought that one of my own children could be such a complete loser.
Their words hurt even more than the physical abuse that they would throw my way. Sometimes it would just be a slap, but other times it was worse. Everyone in family other than me smoked, and they would put out their lit cigarettes on my arm. To this day, I have scars on my arms from all the burn marks from them. The older I got, the worse they would lash out at me as well. The occasional slapping turned into the occasional punch. It finally came to a head when my father came home one night and gave me an ultimatum.
Okay, enough is enough. Chad, you are either going to contribute to this family or you will no longer be welcome in this house.
What do you mean, Dad?
I need a car, so you have two choices. You can either go out and steal one for me, or you can go out and live on the street and never return. If you return here without a car, then I'll kill you. Do you understand me?
I nodded, but I knew that there was no way that I could do as he was instructing me. I didn't know how to steal a car, let alone did I even want to, but living on the street. I was only 16 when he gave me this ultimatum, and the idea of living alone on the street made my heart race so much, I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. I walked out the front door knowing that there was no way that I could go through with it. I walked down the street and hid behind some bushes and waited until 9 a.m. the next day, when the rest of my family left the house to go somewhere. While they were gone, I snuck in and grabbed as much of my belongings and some camping gear that I could carry and left again before they got back. I really had no idea what to do, but I had the camping gear, and so I went out to a local forest and found a secluded spot and made a cozy campsite. In the morning, I went fishing and I was able to catch a few fish to eat, so I was at least not starving. I lived like that for a couple weeks when one day, I came back to camp after fishing and found a man sitting by my tent. He had noticed that I had been living in the woods for some time, and he asked if I needed help. At first, I was reluctant to admit the truth, but after a few minutes of talking, I told him my life story. As it turned out, he had grown up in a similar home, and he had escaped it and eventually became a park ranger. He was living in a cabin not far away, and there was an empty cabin next to his, and I could live there if I wanted. But the deal was that I would keep going to school. I couldn't believe my good luck, and so I accepted. From then on, Carl, the park ranger that helped me, would give me groceries once a week and some money to help me out, and although he would check up on me, he also gave me a lot of freedom. It was great. I was living in the woods still, and got to enjoy nature while also continuing my education. Eventually, I graduated high school, and with Carl's help, I applied to various schools for geology. I managed to get some scholarships and graduated at the top of my class. With my newfound knowledge of geology, I returned home to my cabin and spoke with Carl. He told me about some parcel of land far to the north that was being sold for a very low price, and he wondered if I could have a look at it. He was interested in making an investment and buying it, but wanted to know if it was worth doing so. And so I went and had a look, and sure enough, I knew that it would be a perfect place for a gold mine, and I told Carl as much. He ended up buying the parcel and hired me on as his partner and opened up a mine there. Within weeks, we were finding tons of gold and making more money than we knew what to do with. Carl ended up retiring from his job, and both of us built massive cabins along a lake that we loved. From that point on, we would scout other sites and continue to build our empire. Life was good, but of course my parents and siblings eventually found out that rather than dying on the streets that I had, instead made something of myself, and my father called me.
Hey there, bud. So I heard that you ended up becoming rich.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good for myself. What do you want?
Well, we're family. I would assume that you were going to share your wealth with the rest of us. Or are we going to have to come out to that pretty cabin of yours and just take what you owe us?
How do you know where I live?
Are you kidding me? We've known for a while. Listen, if you know what's good for you, then you'll just give us our share. Otherwise, we'll come over and beat it out of you.
If you come out here, then I'll make sure that you'll regret it. I knew that they were going to be idiots and try to break into my house, but I lived in the woods, and people were the least of my concerns. I had quite the security system along with animal traps surrounding my property. The next night, I heard a howl coming from the woods which sounded like someone crying out in pain. I grabbed my rifle and went to see who it was, and as I approached, I saw that my brother had stepped in a bear trap. The rest of my family had managed to free him, but his leg was all torn up. Without hesitation, I called the police and told them I had 4 people on my property that were trying to attack my home. Hey, I called the police and they'll be here soon. You can either try to flee or get arrested. It's your choice.
Are you threatening us?
You're damn right I am. You people are crazy and dangerous. I don't want you anywhere near me. The sounds of police sirens could suddenly be heard, and my family scattered into the woods as they tried to run away. My brother, with his wounded leg, barely got very far, and was caught first while the rest ran straight through an area that was covered in poison oak and ended up getting covered with it. My father was the worst. He tried to fight back against the police, and they were forced to tase him. After that night, my family was arrested and were charged with assault, since all 4 of them resisted arrest. They all ended up getting scars from the poison oak that they were covered with, since none of them received any kind of treatment for it until well after they were scratching themselves raw. My brother got it the worst though, and his leg became infected, and he ended up having to get it amputated, in order to ensure that my family faced as much punishment as possible. I went down to the police station and told them all about how my family had been breaking the law for years. With my testimony, the police were able to build a case against all 4 of my family members. The police had dozens of cases with no suspects, but, with my help, they were able to determine that my family were guilty of quite a bit. By the time they went to trial, each of them was looking at over 20 years behind bars because of all the different crimes that they had committed. Shortly after the trials, a news station contacted me about what had happened, and I told them my story, and they put it on the news nationwide, and it got so much attention that a movie studio wanted to turn my life story into a movie. As a result, I ended up selling the story of my life for a hefty sum of money, and when the movie came out, my family was roasted by people online. Everyone around the country knew just what kind of monsters my family were, and I knew that even when they eventually got out of prison, that they would be forced to leave the country, or else be attacked and harassed by all the people that had seen the movie. For me, it was great. Not only had I escaped their terrible influence and toxicity, but now I also had a way of making sure that they would never bother me again. It was even better than a restraining order, although I did get one of those as well. So, in the end, I think things worked out pretty well for me and my family got what they deserved. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.